Hey everybody, this is TotalGamerJunkie. I want to welcome you all back to my channel. So in this video, rather than make a theory, I'd just like to state an opinion. And in this video, I'd like to discuss from a narrative perspective which of the Life is Strange 1 endings I believe is better. Not as in what's the best ending out of the two, but rather from a narrative perspective, what is the better ending. So just getting rid of everything, just looking at this through a clear lens. Gonna try and be completely based here and no favoritism in this video. I'm just gonna say what I think I say. Now, as much as I love Chloe, and I definitely want her to be back and play an important part in Double Exposure, I do have to say sacrificing her is better narratively for a few reasons. And I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, when episode 5 came out for Life is Strange 1, I remember there being a lot of controversy as people felt their choices didn't matter in the end. And I gotta be honest, I was always confused about what people were expecting. For me, when I was playing it, I didn't know you could go. I obviously didn't know you had the option to go back and sacrifice Chloe, but I wasn't expecting Max to save everyone. I did believe the storm was going to cause some serious damage. But I also didn't think Arcadia Bay would get wiped out. But the choices, the endings and the choices we get, I was always okay with. Because yes, I've been playing this game and it makes sense. Max has the power to rewind time. Yet we're repeatedly shown and told she is not a time wizard, she's not a time god. And we see this through the limitations of her powers. We see when Mark Jefferson drugs her at the end of episode 4, she tries to rewind, but she can't. We see how bending time and space causes her to have nosebleeds, and who knows what effect it has on her brain. But if I had to pick a comparison, imagine a snow globe. When you shake it up, the snow goes all around, then it settles. Something like that may be happening every time she rewinds or every time she travels back through a photo. Which I gotta say is one of my, scratch that, is my favorite limitation of her powers. Being able to travel into the past, but only being assigned a specific area. Now, if you choose to sacrifice Arcadia Bay, we'll see Max and Chloe drive off, and each game we get afterwards, with the exception of Before the Storm, as that's a prequel, so it's not going forward in time, we learn a bit about what Max has been up to. We learn that in Life is Strange 2, she's with Chloe and she's handing in photos to art galleries, trying to get a job as a famous photographer, as that's her dream. And in the Wavelengths DLC, Steph will mention to Mikey how Chloe is wandering around with another weirdo, who is obviously Max. Chloe's last words in the game are, "I will always be with you." So naturally the two are going to be sticking together. And whether they're best friends or lovers, that's up to us in Double Exposure. I'm so glad we get that choice. Now, as Double Exposure is going to be bringing back Max and possibly Chloe depending on our choices, you can make the argument that this video doesn't really need to be made. It's ridiculous. Our choices are going to carry over into this next game, true. But if we focus on this video as just, okay, there's just one game as what was originally going on, new game, new protagonist, then sacrificing Chloe would make more sense. It does make more sense to me if I look at it through that window. And the first reason is it completes the story, because Life is Strange 2, Wavelengths DLC, we get snippets of information of Chloe and Max, and the writers know we love Chloe and Max. But it's like dangling keys in front of an infant, you know? It's like, oh, look here, here. And that's one of the things I didn't really like. It was good to know what was happening to him, but the information was so little, like Wavelengths was even less than Life is Strange 2, that it wasn't really significant, you know? But if we take a look at the Sacrifice Chloe ending, then that, as sad as it is, gives us more closure. We know what Chloe's fate is, we know Nathan and Jefferson get arrested, and everyone in Arcadia Bay survives. And this is one of the things that always made me weird when people saying, oh, it's like our choices don't even matter. That's not the point of this. It's not our story, it's Max's. And despite going back and undoing all the choices we made in the beginning of the game, those choices were still made. Max still had to live through all that. It's not as if going back through time and she loses her memory or something. No, she has to live with the choices she made. Nothing can take that away. Despite in this new timeline Jefferson being arrested, Max was still his victim in the darkroom. That doesn't go away just because she changed timelines. Neither does her change in personality. By the end of the game, Max is more brave, she's more confident. She's still the shy, nerdy girl we know, but you can see there's been a lot of character development since the first episode. And this is across the span of 5 days. Okay, now that I've discussed this game as just a singular game, let's bring double exposure into it, as that is the next game and we got Max back. And from what we see, she's still the same Max, but she's a bit more mature, but at the same time she's still that nerdy girl from the end of episode 5. Now, regardless of our choices, we can see that she is suffering trauma from whatever decision we make as players. And for me, the trauma of her having to sacrifice Chloe is more interesting than sacrificing Arcadia Bay. And here's a few reasons why. The first is that she has no one to discuss this with. Like, everyone knows if you choose to sacrifice Arcadia Bay, everyone knows what happens to it. All these people die. The only ones that survive are David, Jefferson, Victoria, Officer Barry, and there's one more officer, but I forget his name, and they were all in the dark room at the time, so at least that's who we know of so far. We don't know anyone else, but let's assume Max and Chloe head back to Max's parents' place as they have nowhere to stay. Her parents would clearly understand what a traumatic experience this is. A tornado wiping out an entire town, most of the people you know being killed in the storm. They would obviously, like anyone, if that ever happened to anyone, you'd be like, oh crap, I can't imagine what you're going through unless you lived through the storm. Now, Max choosing to sacrifice Chloe, there's no storm. There's only she has the trauma for this. No one remembers anything. And we know that after Life is Strange 1, depending on what ending we get, Max has never used her rewind again because of the trauma that was associated with it. So clearly, since she's not using her power, she's not going to discuss it with anyone. And even if she did, she can't prove she can rewind. She's not going to risk doing that in case she causes something worse in the storm, which may or may not happen in this new game. Now I do have an idea about how she could prove she has the ability to change between realities, but I made that in another video. But if you want to know, I'll leave a comment for you if you want to ask. But keeping all that bottled up for a decade, that's really got to cause some PTSD issues, and I'm interested to see if double exposure will do that or add different scenes depending on what ending we got, you know. We see that when Max passes out after taking a picture of an owl, she has a little flashback to the end of Life is Strange 1. We hear a shout out, I caused this, I caused all of this, and that's directly when you come out of the nightmare. Now, the second reason why this is interesting is how it can affect romances. Now, if you say, we see that Sophie asked Max what the deal is with the blue-haired girls whose photo she keeps in her wallet. And I have to assume that this is from the Sacrifice Chloe ending because it's we were, past tense. So I think it would be interesting if we even hear Max's thoughts on this as she's journeying with who I believe the romances are Moses and Amanda. Not so clear on Moses, but I'm definitely sure about Amanda as one of the romances. Perhaps Amanda and Moses end up seeing the photo of Chloe and ask about her. Perhaps Max has in a monologue where she thinks about she hasn't had feelings for anyone since Chloe. And perhaps she could have this inner conflict where she doesn't know if she can move on, because we see in the trailer that another disaster is going to happen. So maybe Max is worried about another disaster happening, and that could be interesting to hear her think about. How if she tries to get into another romance, would it end up being like Chloe? Would they die? Or perhaps something like, if you remember in Life is Strange, if you look at Chloe's phone, you'll see she has Rachel Amber as her screen lock. And if you side with her and help her out, a lot of times she'll change it to Max. So perhaps Max, if you do decide to start a romance with her after Chloe's tragic death a decade earlier, then maybe Max will replace the photo of Chloe with Moses or Amanda. Like, she's not gonna chuck it away. But I think it'd be interesting if she puts it in, say, a photo album, and then she has just a photo of Moses or Amanda in there instead, showing that she's finally able to move on. And the third reason, now this is just something I'd like to see. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that having Chloe die might be the only way we can see Max return to Arcadia Bay. Now, if you remember at the end of Before the Storm and True Colors, Deck 9 likes to show us what happens afterwards. They do short scenes, like the jump cuts, so they jump slowly into the future and we see what the characters are doing. I think that'd be interesting to get a quick shot of Max just visiting Chloe's grave. And hell, maybe even David and Joyce could make a small cameo. Well, anyway, that's the end of this video. Please do let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. This is TotalGamerJunkie, signing off.